What's up everyone, Phil here, and welcome to KO Gaming for my review of Injustice 2, the hotly anticipated follow-up to 2013's smash hit from NetherRealm Studios, which pitted all of the DC Universe's heroes and villains against each other in one-on-one combat, very similar to that of Mortal Kombat. This time around, there's a whole new slew of villains and heroes added to the cast, as well as some returning favorites from the original installment. There's new gameplay mechanics, there's a whole new equipment system, new game modes, guilds, and a plethora of content to talk about. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Injustice 2 sports a cast of 28 controllable characters at the get-go, with a 29th character, the super boss Darkseid, who is either available if you pre-ordered the game for free or as a $6 additional DLC purchase. Now, the cast of Injustice 2 is pretty varied. There's characters whose entire game is based solely around trying to zone you, such as Dr. Fate, who uses projectiles and his magic abilities to try to play keep away, while there's new grappler-style characters such as Swamp Thing, who uses his vines to grab you from long distance and slam you for maximum damage. There's also up-close and personal characters such as The Flash or Cheetah, who use their versatility and speed to deal massive damage when they're up close. And then, of course, you've got the hybrid characters like returning characters Superman and Batman, who have both up-close and ranged capabilities, making them a lot more versatile than some of the rest of the cast. And so, no matter what your playstyle is, you're probably going to find one or two characters in Injustice 2 that is catering to what you're looking for, and that's definitely a good thing, because in a lot of cases, fighting games only have one upper class echelon of character that really dominates, and in this case, in Injustice 2, at least there's a big variety of gameplay. Now, there's some returning mechanics from the original Injustice that everyone's going to like, including the wall bounce and ground bounce combos, leading to big juggles and additional damage, mix-ups, and the like. There's also the dodge mechanics that you had in the original Injustice, including being able to push block someone away, as well as the clash system, so that if someone is hitting you with a giant combo near the end of the round, you can actually create this physical clash on screen. It has that little wager system where you use some of your super-powered bar in order to decide whether or not you're going to win the clash, and then either someone deals damage or regenerates some health depending on who actually wins it. So all those things return from the original Injustice. You might say, well then what's different about the combat of Injustice 2? Quite honestly, not a heck of a lot. In fact, there's very few things that have actually been changed from the original game, with a few exceptions. Number one, in Injustice 1, some jump attacks would create this ground bounce juggle state, almost like your character was made purely of rubber. It was really weird. If someone just lands a neutral jump punch, all of a sudden you're bouncing on the ground and they get this gigantic combo based off of it. That was eliminated, thank goodness, because honestly, I do think that it was quite silly. Number two, there are more ways than ever to dodge around the screen. In particular, a lot of these characters now are based on range and keep away, such as Deadshot and Dr. Fate, so the game gives you more maneuverability options. For example, you can now double tap forward and press the meter burn button in order to create a frame of invincibility that forces you through whatever is on the screen and dashes across the map. So it's good because if you're getting zoned by someone who's spamming a million bullets or using a bunch of magic to fill the screen with their projectiles, you could sacrifice one of your meters to dodge through and get close to your opponent. It is a useful tactic, and it's definitely warranted in a case where a game here has characters based solely on projectile spam keep away. In addition, there's more ways now to escape from combos, including just dropping out of the sky for the expense of a meter. It's kind of jarring the first time you see it because it's not how you used to do it in Injustice 1. It actually looks really funny with characters like Grodd, but for the most part, it's a pretty effective system. So these additional things that were added into the game engine, combined with the original game mechanics that worked, make the game engine of Injustice 2 a pretty successful one and a pretty fun one. Now, the other new mechanic of Injustice 2 is the new equipment system. This is a system by which you earn loot via either winning matches online, participating in various game modes, or opening up mother boxes, which contain all kinds of goodies inside, including in-game currency, as well as pieces of the equipment. How the equipment works is you'll earn it and you'll be able to equip it to your character, and immediately your character will change physical appearance. Maybe you have a new visor or helmet or a new piece of armor for the body. It's pretty cool because at all times it feels like as you play you're actually earning an evolution of your character as their appearance changes, and you actually have the ability to make certain physical appearances appear on higher ranked pieces of gear just in case you like the look of a particular one. It's a pretty neat system. Now, the other part of the gear system are the stat buffs that these pieces of gear give you, including having increased strength, increased defense, having your abilities be better, or even having the ability to maybe get an alternate move. And I know that sounds really weird in a fighting game that a character could unlock an alternate move, but it is possible in Injustice 2 to have a special move actually be completely changed or even gain a new one depending on the gear that you equip to your character, so it's pretty neat. Now there's also other things like experience bonuses and the like, because as you play you do gain experience points which unlock more in-game currency and more goodies for your characters, and so the game has a great leveling system based off of this gear system that wants you to keep playing and get you feeling like you're hooked on the game and you want to keep going because you're always going to be progressing. Now, the good news is the gear system is not mandatory. Yes, you can equip gear to your character, but no, you don't have to participate in those stat boosts or those experience boosts or a new special ability. Admittedly, it could be pretty cheap if someone who had tons of free time got to play Injustice 2 more than you, equipped a ton of equipment that made them doubly powerful and have double defense, and now it's like an uphill battle where you have to be twice as good as them to beat them online. Luckily, the game has modes where the equipment is not mandatory, including ranked matches where the equipment is there, but it's only there for a physical appearance, and the stat bonuses do not take effect whatsoever. But one major gripe I do have is the lobby system, because when you're in a lobby, there is no mandatory way to set up a room to say that there should be gear enabled or not. So when you're starting a match, you have the ability to either disable it or enable it. If one person agrees that they want it off and the other person wants it on, by default the gear stays on. Therefore, the entire lobby system for player versus player matches is flawed, because a lot of the times you're forced into matches where people are completely overpowered. This happened to me a few times where a character would hit me twice and deal like 60 to 70% damage, and I was like, that is ridiculous. Obviously, I wouldn't want to play this match. It's completely overpowered. It's not fair. But sadly, that's how they decided to set up the lobby system. So if you don't want to participate in the stat buffs and stuff when it comes to the equipment system, stick to ranked matches. Everyone else who tries player matches or lobbies, you have a chance you're going to have to be using them anyway, and that kind of sucks. So now let's talk content and game modes, because NetherRealm is well known for putting tons of content into their fighting games. Even though a lot of other fighters in this day and age focus primarily on competitive online play, it's certainly not the case with Injustice 2, and that's a welcome thing. First off, there is a very in-depth story mode to Injustice 2, which directly follows the plotline of Injustice 1. It actually has some alternate choice stages where you can choose to either play as one character or another during this one-on-one fight, and it's really neat to be able to have variety and have that control rather than just being forced into fighting with a certain character throughout the entire story, which is pretty much par for the course with all the other NetherRealm games up to now. At the end of the story mode, which lasts around 5 to 5.5 hours, you get a critical choice of if you want to side with one character or another, and depending on what you choose, you do different battles and you get a certain ending. After you've done that, you now have the ability to go back through the story and play the stages the other way around from the way that you chose the first time, picking the other characters and playing it from their perspectives. And once you've unlocked all of that, you can then do the alternate ending of the person you didn't pick the first time around to get a completely different scenario. It's a really interesting way to do the story of a fighting game, and I think it was really well implemented. As always, the game has a lot of in-depth and robust tutorials explaining the various game mechanics and the like, and even each character has their own specific tutorial, which goes through anywhere from 6 to 9 trials explaining their main special moves and combos, and a lot of useful traits that you'll need to know in order to take them into online play. Of course, there's also a practice mode where you can mess around with combos and learn little things offline by yourself against an AI-controlled opponent, and then there's the multiverse mode, which is pretty interesting. Just think of it as the challenge towers from Mortal Kombat games as of late, where you can go through a series of different kinds of challenge trials, maybe an enemy gauntlet, or maybe fighting a super boss with different kinds of things enabled, including electricity coming out of the sky, or the ground every once in a while lighting on fire or electrifying, which causes damage, or maybe gravity that's low, so there's extra bounce when you do juggle combos, or super speed or super slow. All these variables come into play in the multiverse mode. It's a lot of fun, and the thing is, it's not just there just for being there. As you play through it, you'll unlock more and more of the in-game gear. You'll also get in-game currency, which you can use to unlock alternate colors and outfits for the characters. So it definitely makes a lot of sense to play the multiverse mode, because you're going to unlock the vast majority of the content by doing so. It's really awesome. And now there's the new guild mode as well, by which you can invite your friends to your guild. If they join, you can now participate in a special guild multiverse mode, which is additional kind of challenge tower challenges. When you participate with these with your guild, you earn guild credits, which give you more mother boxes to open and more loot and more leveling, etc., etc. It's a constant system of always feeling like you're progressing in the game. It's very well implemented, and even if you never plan on playing Injustice 2 online, you're still going to find a significant amount of replayability value in the game, and I definitely recommend it, even for those who aren't hardcore competitive players. But now let's talk about the meat of the game and what most people will probably be spending the most time playing in, the online play. As I previously mentioned, there's several different modes, including ranked matches where the equipment and gear system does not have any kind of stat bonuses in effect. These are single one-on-one matches by which when you win or lose, your stats increase or decrease, and it changes your rank on the worldwide leaderboards. Then you've got player matches, which aren't so serious. You have the ability to rematch a person, and yes, you have the ability to enable or disable if you want the gear to be in effect during these matches. Of course, you're always taking a gamble because by default it is enabled, and therefore if both parties don't disable it, you're stuck into a match that has the gear things in effect. And then finally, there is the lobby system by which you can create a room and have people come in and challenge each other in a circle. There's various game modes in here, including King of the Hill or just standard versus. It's pretty much common fare for a competitive fighter in this day and age. There's nothing amazingly new or different here, but at the same time, it is a welcome thing that all of these modes are available at launch. I mean, last year Street Fighter V didn't even have half of this stuff, so definitely NetherRealm knows what the hell they're doing. Now let's talk about the quality of online play. I found it hit or miss, like I usually find for most fighting games. Off the bat, I can tell you this: I did overall have a better experience with Injustice 2 than I did with the original game. It seems like the connections overall are getting better. Now, I don't know if that's just a result of better netcode in this outing, or if people's internet at least are just getting progressively better over the years, but it does seem that more often than not, I am getting better connections than I used to, or sometimes it was just absolute slow-mo and a lag fest. Now, the good news about Injustice 2 is that they actually allow you to enable the visibility of the ping of the person you're trying to play in milliseconds. This is just groundbreaking because other fighting games typically just give you these stupid bars that are coded different colors like green or red or yellow, and you don't know what the hell's going to be a valid connection. Now you actually have a number statistic to judge, and from what I found, primarily matches of 100 milliseconds or less end up being pretty damn good. You can control your character well, you can even react, you can do hit confirms, and do all the things that you need to do for it to be a competitive match. But in general, I found that most matches of 100 milliseconds or more delay end up being just a little bit on the slower side, and therefore it's going to be sluggish. In a lot of cases, I couldn't even block moves that were incredibly slow moving across the screen. It really depends on who you're playing, where they are in the world, and your own internet connection as well, but it's really good you can see the pings for the first time. In general, I would probably say about 60 to 70% of the matches I played were pretty decent, at least, with 30% pretty much being god-awful, but there's not much you can do about that when you have people worldwide challenging each other online. You're simply put gonna get bad connections. Now, one thing they implemented for the ranked match system to try to prevent you from having a bad connection that could lead to a loss that's gonna hurt your online ranking is the ability to back out or decline a match if the ping listed is above, I believe, 150 milliseconds. Sadly, I don't think this is good. I think it should have been less than 100, should have been the judgment point, because as I said, anything 100 or more seems to be just not sufficient, and if you get like 140 millisecond ping, chances are that the match is going to be laggy, and therefore you're going to have a chance to lose when maybe you would have won if it wasn't so delayed. So that is kind of annoying, but if you do get a high ping guy in ranked, you can deny that request, and therefore you won't have anything negatively affect your ranking, which is great. Overall, the online play of Injustice 2 works. It's functional, it's fun when it works. You are going to have frustrations where you'll have matches where it lags. This is a natural symptom of a game that was developed in the United States of America, where we don't have a nationwide infrastructure of internet all owned by the government or by one company. We've got different internet lines, we've got cable, we've got dial-up, and when all that happens, everyone has a finicky or different connection. It's going to lead to lag spikes and problems, and I really don't think there's a way any game developer is going to solve this issue anytime soon. But I will say this: yes, the online play can be frustrating, but overall it is enjoyable, and I do think that the online play of Injustice 2 is improved from the first game, and that's saying something. However, as always, I do have a few gripes with the game that I'd like to bring up, one of which I already did. It's that if you use the lobby system to use rooms or flavor versus player matches that aren't ranked, Sadly, the equipment system is on by default, and you may be forced into playing with equipment that's incredibly overpowered, leading to one-sided matches that just aren't fun. I don't think that that should be the case. It should be disabled by default and only enabled maybe if both people agree. I don't know why NetherRealm did the opposite. Number 2, I do have to say I feel that there are certain characters in Injustice 2 that obviously were designed for people of lower skill level and are basically lending to you doing repeated kind of gameplay mechanics online, especially in an environment with some lag involved, that lead to pretty much unfair wins. For example, Deadshot. He has a million projectiles, and even with all the new gameplay mechanics that allow you to meter burn to dash across the screen, in an online environment with lag, he's still almost impossible to get close to. A lot of people are even saying he's worse than Deathstroke was back in Injustice 1, and that's saying something. There's also Robin, who is cool that he's in the game. I mean, we all love Batman's sidekick or whatever, but they designed him to be a kind of character with flowing combos that are almost impossible to break through. What I mean by that is, if you know what you're doing with Robin, there are certain different hit strings that you can do with his abilities that make it like he can just endlessly attack you. There's almost never an opportunity to break through or get out of the hit strings that he does. To make matters worse, some of these hit strings are high-low mix-ups, some of them are overheads, and if you don't know what exactly every single move that Robin can do, you're gonna get overwhelmed. Primarily, Robin's been one of the highest used characters for the first week of Injustice 2, and I understand why. He's pretty much a very safe character to play with online, and unless you've played against a significant amount of Robins and you've learned all of his moves and mechanics, it's almost impossible to properly defend against, and it's kind of ridiculous because no other character really has this. I mean, yeah, Black Canary has some really good high-low mix-ups, and the Flash could be pretty confusing up close as well, but neither of which do they use the same kind of attack style. Robin has a sword, and so every attack almost looks the same because it's all just a sword stabbing at you in different directions, making it almost impossible to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do to defend against them, and I don't really get that. On the flip side of all this, there's some characters that just seem like they don't really stand a chance. For example, Swamp Thing is a really interesting character design. I like him because he has different ranged grabs, mix-ups, and tricks, but sadly these grabs aren't very good. All you need to do is duck, and the grab can never hit you. Meaning that basically about 50 to 60% of the time, Swamp Thing can never effectively touch you, while most of the other characters at least have something that can do something when a character is crouching. Swamp Thing is pretty much shot, and it sucks because it looks like they really did design him primarily around his grapples and a few mix-ups here and there, but really against most of the cast, he doesn't stand a chance. And there's actually a bunch of characters like that, where if you're facing certain matchups, for example, if you're a character that's really good at zoning, if someone gets in your face, there's almost no way to get them away from you once they start a rush down kind of tactic, and that's very frustrating. So really, you make one mistake, the match is over. I can definitely see why some people would have issue with that and say that maybe the gameplay overall should have been better designed, so I totally get that. Now, the last complaint that I have has to do with the dumbing down of fighting games over the years, being that I was at one point a professional fighting game player, and I played back in the day when everything was hard to control and you really had to put in tons of time in order to practice special moves and combos and learn the hand-eye coordination and timing necessary to be a competitive player. In this day and age, these game developers are purposely dumbing down the controls, especially on these console games, to make it as easy as possible for the maximum amount of people to jump in and at least feel like they can do combos and the like with all of the characters that they like. The problem is you sacrifice the quality of the game, and let me give you an example. By default, Injustice 2 has input shortcuts and button check releases enabled in the options menu, meaning you don't really have to complete a full motion. If it's a rounded motion or if it's a tap motion from back to forward, you don't have to properly finish the motion. A lot of the times the game will give you the benefit of the doubt even if you didn't, and still give you the move or the combo that you were looking for, and that's kind of silly because obviously you need the skill to be able to do it properly. Why is it just giving it to you like that? Now, the good news is you can turn those off in the options, but I've even found with those disabled that a lot of the times I end up getting moves that I don't intend simply because the button inputs are so lax in Injustice 2. I almost always get the move I don't want, and that's bad. In previous fighting games, it's been a lot more strict, and so it's easier to do more complex maneuvers, like go from a blocking stance immediately into a special move that you want, or immediately into a different move or a combo. And in Injustice 2, it almost seems like half the time it's 50-50 that you're going to get what you want or you don't if you're trying to do something spur of the moment on reaction, and that's not a good thing. So Overall, is it playable? Yes. Is it fun? Yes. But at top levels, I could definitely see some people having issue with Injustice 2, simply because I do feel that the control scheme, even with the button input, shortcuts and everything turned off, still seems a little bit too easy mode, and it should have been made a lot more hardcore in my opinion. Whether you're a hardcore fighting game fan or just a casual who likes to enjoy the offline content, Injustice 2 is a game for every kind of gamer. It's got tons of fan service for DC fans, it's got lots of unlockables and things to aspire to by repetitively playing the game and unlocking new modes, challenges, and equipment. The online play is pretty solid, there's a wide variety of characters that lend themselves to different style of play, and even though it has a few flaws here at launch, undoubtedly this is pretty much one of the best fighting game launches of the past few years, and I definitely enjoy the game. It's a strong recommend for me, especially if you enjoyed Mortal Kombat or the previous Injustice. It's a no-brainer. It definitely is a game that you can tell NetherRealm put a lot of time and attention into for putting as much content into it as they did, and it is a very welcome thing. Again, with games like Street Fighter V coming out bare bones, NetherRealm said we have to be sure to make sure that our games are well polished and have tons of content at launch, and it definitely has that. Injustice 2, I give an 8.5 out of 10. I feel that if just a few more balance issues were in there, if maybe the equipment system wasn't mandatory in player versus player matches and a few other things, I think the game would be a lot better. But overall, it's a really robust gameplay experience with a ton of content. I strongly recommend it, and I think that you should check it out. Well, that's it for my review, everyone, and if you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like here on YouTube, as well as subscribing to KO Gaming for lots more of this style of video coming up in the future. In addition, please check out the video description for a link to a few of my playlists of various kind of raw gameplay of Injustice 2, in case you'd like to see how the game performs for itself. And also, please check out a lot of the fun links there, including my Teespring store, as well as my Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time right here on KO Gaming.